Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday Learning Bhagavatam class. Today, we've got our guest speaker as Shyamvallabha Gopi Mataji. Welcome back, Hare Krishna. She'll be giving us a class on Canto 8, Withdrawal of the Cosmic Creations, Chapter 9, The Lord Incarnates as Mohinī-Mūrti. Over to you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you for calling me again. And yeah, I hope I could share something useful. Um, and so before I start, I'm going to start off with a short kirtan. Jai Madhava Kunja Bihari Vedaya Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajadana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamuna Niraha Vanatrati Yamuna Niraha Vanatrati Dera Yamadara Kunjabihari Jara Madhava Kunjabihari. Yeah, I'll share my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
We can see your screen. Can't hear you properly, though, Mataji.
Can you hear me properly now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. So again, today we're learning about Canto 8, Chapter 9 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And before I start, again, I would like to invoke the blessings of the Acharyas, my seniors, my mentors, and everybody present here, that I may say something useful. If you know the prayers, please do join in the on mute. So, Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parjana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute तप्त कंचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानं पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayan Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tata Jayamudiraye Shinmitam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridayanta Stuhya Patrani Vidodnoti Suritsitam Nashta Prayasa Bhatresu Nityam Bhagavata Seveya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki. So, just for a bit of context before we start this chapter. So we see that the Asuras are fighting over Amrita, the nectar. And this is because they're all guided by self-interest. So when a person's self-centered desire becomes the center of life, conflict naturally arises, and each person thinks, what is best for me is the most important thing. And since everyone thinks in this way, their interests inevitably collide with the desire for wealth, power, prestige, and enjoyment. And therefore, self-centeredness creates conflict in society. And we rely on layers of unity. So people rely on unifying concepts to reduce conflict. The first layer is family. Individuals born of the same parents feel united by the concept of family. However, families may still conflict with other families. At a second level, there's community. Multiple families unite under a broader concept, community. And this reduces internal conflict, but communities can still fight other communities. The third layer is nation. Communities unite into a nation, yet nations may still conflict with other nations. And the fourth, a larger unifying concept, is that all people belong to humanity. And in theory, this should bring global peace. But the truth is, even if humanity becomes united, people may still act in self-interest against other beings. For example, humans may unite and harm the animals. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to open up the floor. So how do we all remain united and achieve real peace? Would anyone like to answer before I give you the answer? Please unmute yourself if you'd like to.
Communicate, sorry. Hare Krishna.
So here, communicate about Krishna. Is that what you said, or?
Yeah, communicate about the problem.
Communicate about the problem. What else would you do?
If we keep Krishna at the center, as it says, 529 Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktaram Yajna Tapasyam Sarvalokam Maheshwar, then we will have peace because we are not using our self-interest. Krishna is the supreme, and if everybody serves him, then we're not doing things out of our ulterior motive, but we're doing things to satisfy Krishna, so we will have peace.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Spot on. So, the first thing is, so how do we all remain united and achieve real peace? The first concept, the first idea is stated in chapter 14, verse 4 of the Gita, where Krishna says, Sarva yonesu kunteya murtaya sambhavantiya Desham Brahma Mahadyonir Aham Bija Pradapita. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father. So the concept that will unite us together is Tesam Brahma Mahadyonir, Aham Bija Pradapita. This is understanding that Krishna is the seed-giving father of everyone, and that we're all in the same family, regardless of what body we're in, whether we're in an animal body or a human body, or from this country or that country. So when Krishna explains at the end of the 5th chapter, as Mataji rightly said, he explains the peace formula, and he's supplying us this concept. And the peace formula stated in chapter 5, verse 29 of the Gita goes, Bhuktaram yajnatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suryadam sarvabhutanam natva mam shanti mrityati. So a person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate benefactory of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. So understanding that Krishna is Bhoktaram, the supreme enjoyer, is essential for spiritual peace. It is not myself, nor my family, community, nation, or even all of humanity who are the enjoyers. Krishna alone is the enjoyer of all sacrifices and austerities, and as stated in this verse, Bhoktaram yajnatapasam sarva loka maheshwaram. Krishna is the enjoyer of all sacrifices and austerities, and the supreme lord of all planets and demigods. He is sarva loka maheshwara, the supreme controller, and unless one is the controller, one cannot actually enjoy. Therefore, Krishna, being the supreme controller, is the supreme enjoyer, and he is also Shrudam Sarvabhutanam, the most intimate, well-wishing friend of every living entity. And when one understands these 3 facts, that Krishna is the enjoyer, the supreme proprietor, and the dearmost friend, then one naturally becomes peaceful. And this is real knowledge, and accepting it brings one peace that the peace that every living being is searching for. So when the demigods obtained the Amrita, the divine nectar, granting eternal life, they immediately began fighting amongst themselves, as well as fighting against the demigods. To protect the demigods, Krishna incarnated as Mohinī-Mūrti, a completely unique and never before seen form. So Mohini means bewilderment. This form of Krishna, appearing as the extraordinarily beautiful Mohinī-Mūrti, was so captivating that it instantly stopped everyone from what they were doing and drew all their minds towards her. The 9th chapter describes how after all the endeavor to obtain the Amrita for immortality, the demons failed because of the self-centered attitude. Although the Devas were not entirely free from material desires, they were fundamentally devotees of Krishna and sought his pleasure. In contrast, the demons, being fully self-centered, did not accept the supreme authority, and therefore their attempt to attain immortality was spoiled. This chapter also explains exactly what prevents the demons from achieving perfection, and why their effort to obtain the Amrita ultimately fails. And in my usual way, I've broken the chapter down. So it's broken down into 4 subsections and 6 subsections within it. So in verses 1 to 13, it talks about how the demons give the nectar to Mohinī-Mūrti. And that's further broken down in verses 1 to 7. So we see as the demons were quarreling, Mohinī-Mūrti approached them. The demons were attracted to her and requested her to distribute the nectar. Then in verses 8 to 13, Mohinī-Mūrti said that she couldn't be trusted, but the demons, being captivated by her beauty, unanimously kept faith in her. Between verses 14 to 23, we see that Mohinī-Mūrti distributes nectar to the demigods. So in verses 14 to 18 is described how the demigods and demons sat down in rows and Mohinī-Mūrti entered the arena being dressed attractively. Then in verses 19 to 23, Mohinī-Mūrti gave all the nectar to the demigods and didn't give anything to the demons, who kept silent to not fight with the woman. And then we see in verses 24 to 27, cunning Rahu is beheaded. So demon Rahu entered the line of the demigods in disguise. The sun god and the moon god detected it, and Mohinī-Mūrti beheaded Rahu. And in verses 28 to 29, the glory of taking the Lord's shelter is described. So although both the demons and the demigods worked in a similar manner, only the demigods attained success because of their surrender to Lord Vishnu. So the demons gave up their friendship while quarreling for nectar. Then they saw a beautiful woman coming towards them. Captivated by her youth, beauty and luster, they approached her with lusty desires and inquired from her. The demons asked Mohinī-Mūrti, "O lotus-eyed girl, who are you? Ka, where did you come from? Kuta, why did you come? Kim, whose daughter are you? Kashya, you are agitating our minds. We understand that even demigods did not touch you before. Providence has mercifully sent you to please our senses and minds." So the first purport I'm going to share is the third purport of this chapter. And the key message that Prabhupada gives is that a woman is supposed to belong to her father before marriage, to her husband after her marriage, and to her growing son in her old age. So the demons inquired from the wonderfully beautiful girl, "To whom do you belong?" Again, a woman is supposed to belong to her father before marriage, to her husband after her marriage, and to her grown-up sons in her old age. In regard to this inquiry, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that the question, "To whom do you belong?" means, "Whose daughter are you?" Since the demons could understand that the beautiful girl was still unmarried, every one of them desired to marry her. Thus they inquired, "Whose daughter are you?" So here we see the demons thought the motive for Mohinī-Mūrti appearing was that she was looking for a husband and looking to seek who the most qualified was for a husband amongst all the personalities that were present, because everyone was there, the demigods and demons. So they thought she was looking for a husband, and they were all eager to be with her. The demons unanimously requested her, "Even though we are the sons of Kashyapa, from the same family, we are all fighting for nectar. O thin-waisted one, please favor us by settling this dispute and divide the nectar equally amongst us." So there, in their hands was immortality, and they were struggling to gain deathlessness. But as soon as they saw Mohinī-Mūrti, everything was forgotten. They were fighting to get the nectar, but as soon as they saw the most attractive, beautiful woman, they completely forgot, and their attention was simply fixed on her. And this is a very accurate statement of reality in the mature world, of how powerful the attraction is of man to woman. This is just what the Lord wanted, to bewilder them, and bewilder them to act very foolishly. because that is what bewilderment means. So how powerful is Maya? She can make a fool out of an intelligent person, and she can make a great fool out of a great person. Mohinī-Mūrti smiled and smirked with attractive feminine gestures. O son of Kashyapa, I am only a prostitute. Independent women seek new friendships daily, just like monkeys, jackals, and dogs unsteady in sexual relationships. So learned people, do not put faith in such a woman whose friendship is temporary. Mohinī-Mūrti had indirectly disclosed the purpose of cheating the demons. She was certainly speaking seriously, but the demons, being captivated by her bodily features, took her words as a joke. Would anyone like to read this purport? Please unmute yourself if you'd like to.
Okay, I don't mind.
Okay, thank you.
Kanakya Pandita, the great politician and moral instructor, said, Vishwaso naiva kartavya strechu raja kuleshu cha. Never put your faith in a woman or a politician. Thus the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who was pretending to be a woman, warned the demons against putting so much faith in her, for she had appeared as an attractive woman, ultimately to cheat them, indirectly disclosing the purpose of which she had appeared before them. She said to the sons of Kashyapa, How is this? You were all born of the great Rishi, yet you're putting your faith in a woman who is loitering here and there like a prostitute, unprotected by father or husband. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. And would someone else like to read the second part?
Hare Krishna, can I read?
Yes, thank you.
Women in general should not be trusted, and what to speak of a woman loitering like a prostitute. The word Kamini is significant in this connection. Women, especially beautiful young women, invoke the dormant, lusty desires of a man. Therefore, according to Manu Samhita, every woman should be protected either by her husband, by her father, or by her grown sons. Without such protection, a woman will be exploited. Indeed, women like to be exploited by men. As soon as a woman is exploited by a man, she becomes a common prostitute. This is explained by Mohinī-Mūrti, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. And now touching on this very sensitive topic. So what is the correct understanding of the statements, women are not very intelligent, women should not be trusted, and indeed women like to be exploited by men? So the correct understanding is society requires good spiritual grounded population for peace and progress. Varna ashram dharma aims to support such a population through proper family structure, and women and children are more vulnerable to misuse and thus traditionally require guidance and protection. The statement that women are not very intelligent comes from Chanakya Pandit, referring to the greater emotional vulnerability and trusting nature. When Varna ashram breaks down, women may be exploited, and irresponsible men are the primary cause of social disorder. Therefore, the fault does not lie with women, but with men who abandon their duties. And you see modern examples of exploitation. So many women today lack proper protection and are exploited economically, socially, and sexually. Cultural trends promoting independence or sexual freedom often result in women being objectified for men's enjoyment. Women are encouraged into roles such as fashion and entertainment, that create indirect forms of prostitution. The trusting, kind-hearted, soft nature is misused by lustful men who use flattery and manipulation for sexual gain. Women become disappointed by fathers who do not educate them, husbands who exploit them, and children who take them for granted. Therefore, societal degradation is primarily because men have failed in their duties, either by being weak and irresponsible or by being predatory. And this is summarized by Shankaracharya Adhikari, so one of the gurus in ISKCON. So, but Vedic culture does not consider women inherently inferior. Major cosmic departments are headed by goddesses. For example, Durga or Kali is the head of defense. Saraswati is the goddess of education, and Lakshmi, the goddess of finance. And other goddesses, the other female goddesses of beauty, food, wealth, happiness, etc. These divine females are powerful, intelligent, and deeply trusted by Krishna, who lovingly refers to Durga as Mama Maya, my energy. Thus, women in their spiritual identity are honored and revered. So, what was Prabhupada's behavior towards women? Prabhupada initiated women, trained them, empowered them, and placed them in responsible positions. Prabhupada gave his female followers responsible service as heads of the Pujari department and Pujaris, preachers and book distributors, art department, heads and artists, headmistress and teachers, proofreaders and other BBT staff, kitchen heads and cooks, and in a number of other areas. So clearly, Prabhupada had a lot of respect for women because a guru would not initiate someone unintelligent. So this shows he considered them capable and worthy. Srila Prabhupada protected women by educating them about their true identities as spirit souls, educating them in devotional service, a process by which they could attain liberation from death and rebirth, the ultimate protection, and when limited facilities were available for devotees' use, giving them a share of resources. In India, for example, Prabhupada would ensure that his female disciples had proper transportation, prasad, and sleeping facilities. And I wanted to share some female disciples who testify to his respectful and affectionate treatment towards them. Would anyone like to read this memory by Yamuna Devi? Please unmute yourself if you can.
I can read.
Anyone? Okay, thank you.
Female disciples testified to his respectful and affectionate treatment. The Dinatarani Dasi. One of the loving exchanges Yamuna had on several occasions with Srila Prabhupada related to his teasing her, or as she used to say, trying to get a rise out of her by quoting Chanakya Pandit's verse, "Never trust a politician or a woman." Another variation was when he would purposely make a statement about women being less intelligent. This may have started in San Francisco, but specifically she mentioned that it occurred in London, then Madras and Bombay. Once she was riding in a car with him and he quoted Chanakya's verse and then turned around to look directly at her with an almost impish smile on his face. When she didn't react, he repeated it and looked around again in the same way. Yamuna simply smiled and said, "Yes, Srila Prabhupada, you are certainly correct." Then some time passed and Srila Prabhupada praised her to show that he in fact saw no distinction on the basis of body, but saw her as an eternal spirit soul, sincerely engaged in practicing and promoting Krishna consciousness. Yamuna Devi, a life of unalloyed devotion.
Thank you. And these are a few more testaments. So when Srila Prabhupada first said in a class that for a man, association with a woman is dangerous because she makes him lose control over his senses, the male devotees started acting very nastily with the women of that particular temple. The ladies expressed their pain to Prabhupada, who then called in all the men and said, I was talking about materialistic women, not of the women of the movement. These are angels. In another account, Srila Prabhupada also said, in another instance, when we talk of women, we do not talk about those of our movement, because by associating with these women, if they are Krishna conscious, you will be liberated. And then a disciple of Swaminarayan said to Srila Prabhupada, my spiritual master said to avoid all women and to never go where there are women. Srila Prabhupada laughed and said, that is impossible. There are women everywhere. Then coming back to the temple and watching 2 women devotees bow down to him, he said, by associating with these women, you will be purified. In a letter to Jennifer in 1975, Prabhupada said, we are all Vaishnavas. We are not concerned with male or female position in life. That is simply bodily concept of life. It is not spiritual. Whether one is male or female, it does not matter. Simply chant Hare Krishna and follow the 4 regulative principles and your life will be perfect. And later in a letter to Jayadirtha in 1975, he said, it is not that women should only produce children, but they are meant for advancing in devotion. And Srila Prabhupada said about Yamuna in the early 70s that she had reached the stage of power. So the central key is material consciousness versus spiritual consciousness. So in Vaishnavism, so intelligence or trustworthiness is not determined by gender, but by consciousness. And we see in many examples in the scriptural stories in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So for example, if you know the story of Kaliya, Krishna and Kaliya, so the wives of Kaliya were actually serious devotees of Lord Krishna. And according to the acharyas, they had often tried to convince their husbands to surrender to him. Finally, finding himself in unbearable agony, Kaliya remembered his wife's advice and took shelter of the Lord. In another statement, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that Kaliya's wives, who were great devotees of Krishna, had been disgusted with their husbands because of his demoniac activities. They had been thinking, let this atheist be killed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We will be widows and engaged in his worship. But after Krishna had danced on Kaliya's hoods, his wife understood that Kaliya had taken shelter of the Lord within his mind and had become humble and remorseful. Then they thought, just see, her husband is becoming a Vaishnava. We must try to protect him. Although Krishna killed other demons, he spared Kaliya, because Kaliya's wives were great devotees of the Lord and offered him loving affection. And Krishna withdrew both Kaliya's offense against the Lord's devotee Garuda and that against the residents of Vrindavan who are very dear to him. And such was the power of the Nagapatni Vaishnavis. Another example from Krishna's pastime demonstrating that qualification is based not on body but on consciousness is the episode of the wives of the Brahmanas. Because these women were great devotees of the Lord, their foolish Brahmana husbands received spiritual benefits and eventually came to their senses. Seeing their wives' pure transcendental devotion to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and recognizing their own lack of devotion, the Brahmanas felt deep sorrow and condemned themselves. They understood that their wives, having perfected their attachment to Krishna, no longer possessed even a trace of material attachment to home, husband, children, or worldly life. And from that day on, the husbands accepted these women as worshipable spiritual masters and no longer regarded them merely as their wives. Thus, the scriptures direct us beyond bodily designations to the essence of each individual, bhakti. And similarly, we see that although Kunti had a body of a woman, she was a devotee. Therefore, she was not like an ordinary unintelligent woman. Rather, she was the most intelligent, for she recognized Krishna to be the Supreme Godhead. So thus, from Krishna's viewpoint, unless until we're elevated to spiritual consciousness, we're conditioned and fallen. From that viewpoint, those of us who are spiritually inclined are more intelligent than those who aren't. And on the spiritual platform, everyone is equal. Krishna does not discriminate. Thus, the statement about women being less intelligent, not trustworthy, and liking to be exploited by men refer to the material bodily consciousness, not to the eternal soul or to the spiritually awakened women or men. So then we see, but the demons trusted Mohinī-Mūrti completely. Laughing with gravity, they gave the nectar pot to her. She then took a promise from them in captivating words as a joke. She said, "My dear demons, if you accept whatever I may do, whether honest or dishonest, then I could take responsibility for dividing the nectar among you." The chiefs of the demons were not very expert in deciding things. Upon hearing the sweet words of Mohinī-Mūrti, they immediately assented. "Yes," they answered, "what you have said is right." Thus the demons agreed to accept a decision. So here we can see that the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot abide by anyone's dictation. Whatever he does is absolute. The demons, of course, were deluded by the illusionary potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus Mohinī-Mūrti got them to promise that whatever she would do, they would accept. So sometimes an incarnation of the Lord appears to cheat the atheists, and Mohinī-Mūrti resembles Lord Buddha, who appeared as Samohaya Sura-Dvisham to cheat the asuras. The word Sura-Dvisham refers to those who are envious of the demigods or devotees. The demigods and demons observed a fast, bathed, offered oblations to fire, and gave suitable charity to Brahmanas and others. Then, dressed in new garments and ornaments, they all sat on kusha grass seats facing east. Mohinī-Mūrti entered the arena wearing a beautiful sari, golden ankle bells and earrings. She walked slowly with restless eyes, youthful pride and a smiling face, carrying the nectar pot in her hands. With all her beautiful feminine attributes, she appeared like a personal associate of Lakshmi, Shishaki, and enchanted everyone. She was the most beautiful woman. So, Lord Narayan is the friend of Lakshmi, but now he has become a female friend. Narayan is the most beautiful among men, but Lakshmi should not become proud, thinking that she is the most beautiful woman. For when the Lord accepts the form of a woman, he surpasses even Lakshmi's beauty. And to prove this to Lakshmi, the Lord showed this form as Mohini to challenge her. Mohini didn't give the nectar to the demons, because by nature they were all crooked like snakes. Giving them the nectar would have been as dangerous as feeding milk to a state. In the purport, Prabhupada says, it said, Sarpaha Krura Kalaha Kruraha Sarpat Krura Daraha Kalaha. The snake is very crooked and envious, and so also is a person like a demon. Mantra Siddhi Vasha Sarpa Kalaha Kena Nivaryate. One can bring a snake under control with mantras, herbs, and drugs, but an envious and crooked person cannot be brought under control by any means. Considering this logic, the Supreme Personality of Godhead thought it unwise to distribute the nectar to the demons. And therefore, even though the demons had instructed Mohini to divide the nectar justly, not giving them the nectar was the best justice. Mohinī-Mūrti arranged separate rows for the demigods and demons to sit. First she went to the demons and cheated them by her sweet words and bewildering gestures. Later she administered nectar to the demigods to make them free from old age and death. Jara Mrityu Haram Sudam. Enchanted by Mohini's gestures, the demons thought that she would only give a little nectar to the demigods to satisfy them, and give most to the demons. They thought, we are now drinking with our ears, eyes, and mind. The nectar from the milk ocean cannot be more than this. What is the use of other nectar? We simply desire to please her. The demons kept silent to keep their promise, to keep equilibrium and not to fight with the woman. They developed love, affection, and respect for her and didn't want to disturb their relationship with her. The demons were so captivated by Mohini, who said, the demigods are miserly and excessively anxious to take the nectar first, so let them have it first. But since you are not like them, you could wait a little longer. You are all heroes, and pleased with me. It is better for you to wait until after the demigods drink. So all the demons were bewildered by Mohinī-Mūrti, but Rahu understood her intentions. So the lesson we learn from this part of the pastime is we must never trust our minds and senses, and always remain faithful to the divine order of Guru to protect ourselves from Maya. So we should try and understand the power of Maya. She understands our weaknesses and is working at every level, both subtle and gross, to steal our hearts away from the nectar of Krishna and to keep us captured in the bondage of illusion. To the degree we take our life into our own hands, relying on our mind and senses, we become slaves of the illusionary energy. In that state, we are exploited and manipulated by Maya. Just as the demons were manipulated, our hearts will be taken away from the real nectar. Because of Maya's influence, we must never trust our minds or senses, but we must always remain faithful to the divine orders of Guru. This is our only protection against the illusion of Maya. By rendering faithful, uncheating service and obedience to the Guru, we could receive the mercy of both Guru and Krishna, which enables us to surmount the stringent laws of material nature. Therefore, following the orders of the spiritual master is the secret of success and the only way to go back to Godhead. The second lesson we learn here is that material desires cannot be overcome by suppression, but by developing a superior attachment to Krishna. We see that whenever the demigods were in trouble, they prayed to Krishna. And Krishna, in this instance, told the demigods that they should not be tempted by any of the wonderful products that come out from the churning of the Mandara mountain. And so they surrendered to Krishna's instructions. But the demons were greedy and wanted all of this. So we should meditate on the principle param dvisva nivartate, the idea that lower pleasures fade only when we taste the higher pleasure. So if you attach yourself to the higher taste of the beauty and to the glory of Govinda, then naturally you lose all your desire for the lower so-called nectar of this world. Krishna says in the Gita that unless one experiences the higher taste of the nectar of devotion, one cannot for long refrain from seeking out the nectar of material enjoyment. Therefore, he must replace her desires with the desire for service to Krishna. He must constantly be seeking the nectar of devotion to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. And as long as we're seeking that, then the so-called pleasures of this world will no longer attract us, our mind, or senses. Therefore, he must strive to always remember Krishna. That remembrance of Krishna will keep us immune from the influence of the forms of the nectar of this mature world, because he is the supreme nectar. And the transcendental means of always remembering Krishna, as taught by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is to constantly chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And by chanting and hearing about Krishna with sincerity, we receive the higher taste of devotion, and then all lower material desires automatically disappear. So Rahu entered the demigod's assembly, distinguishing himself as a demigod, and drank the nectar unnoticed. But the sun and the moon, who had permanent animosity to him, detected it. Lord Hari at once cut off Rahu's head with this weapon. Before the nectar could enter his body, Rahu's head, being touched by the nectar, survived, but his body didn't. Since Rahu's head had become immortal, Lord Brahma made it into a planet like the sun and the moon. And out of enmity, we see Prabhupada describes in his purport how he says Rahu attacks both the sun and the moon during the nights of the full and dark moon. And this is when we see eclipses. But why do you think that Krishna couldn't detect Rahu initially? Why did the sun and the moon god have to tell him? This is because Krishna allows things to go on as he desires. Anything he doesn't know means he doesn't want to know for the purpose of a particular pastime. Because if Krishna is always aware of everything, that will ruin his pastimes, in a sense. So although Krishna is fully expanded in what he knows, he is also fully compressed in what he doesn't know, in what he knows. This is as if he was in Vrindavan herding the cows, thinking of everything going around in the universe, and hearing every prayer that every person was asking him, and controlling everything. Krishna wouldn't be able to enjoy his pastimes. And when Mother Yashoda would ask him to open his mouth to see if he had eaten dirt, then he would say, "Who is my mother to tell me this? I know everything. I am the Supreme Lord." But rather he feels real emotions when his mother chastises him, making his pastimes more relishable. So although Krishna undoubtedly knows everything, he only chooses to know was appropriate for his position within the pastime. So here we see that Krishna did not detect Rahu, but inspired by the sun and the moon to detect Rahu, and when pointed out to him, he cut off Rahu's head with his Sudarshan chakra, because he wanted to show the effects of drinking the nectar. So after beheading Rahu, it is described how the Supreme Lord, the well-wisher of the three worlds, Lokabhavena, revealed his original form after all the demigods drank nectar. Verses 28 to 29 describe the glory of taking the Lord's shelter. And in this Sanskrit goes, Evam surasura gana samadesha kala etva artha kamane matayopi pala vikalpaha. Although the place, milk ocean, the time, the means, Mount Mandara, herbs, etc., the work, churning, and the ambition, nectar, were all the same for both the demigods and the demons, they achieved the opposite results. Tat mitam suragana phalam ajashapur. The demigods easily achieved the desired result of drinking the nectar. Yat pada pankaja raja shreyanan natetaya. Because they took shelter of the dust of the Lord's lotus feet, while the demons didn't. So there is a lesson to be learned. We could see from the beginning that the demigods were having trouble. They prayed to the Lord who guided them to make a truce with the demons. They made a truce with the demons, trying to churn the nectar, the ocean of milk, to get the Amrita together. Then, part of their plan was to carry them under a hill, but it was too heavy, and it crushed them. So the Lord himself carried Mandara mountain, and then the Lord at the same time carried both the demons and the demigods there. They then put the mountain in the water. It sunk, and it became Kurma, the tortoise. And then Krishna empowered everyone with the modes of nature. Ultimately, he was doing everything. Then he churned the mountain, and so many things were produced. The demigods followed his instructions and did not become attached to anything. And then, when the demons snatched the nectar from Dhanvantari, it appeared that everything was lost, and they called out again and again, which is a mark of a devotee, independence, because a devotee feels himself helpless. This feeling of helplessness is the first step in surrender. Goptritve varanam tata vishwas. So recognizing helplessness and dependence on the Lord. So when the demigods had finished everything, Krishna disclosed his form, and the demons understood that they had been cheated by the Lord yet again. Both sides had worked, the time, the place, everything was the same. The results was there, but the demigods ended up with everything, and the demons nothing. Because the demigods are always under the shelter of the dust of the lotus feet, they could very easily drink the nectar, because Krishna was on their side. Rakhe Krishna Mareke, Mare Krishna Rakeke. If Krishna wants to kill you, he could save you. And if Krishna wants to protect you, he could kill you. The demons, however, not having taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, were unable to achieve the results they desired. So we, hearing this, we should always desire to become dependent devotees of the Lord. And then Prabhupada gives reference to Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, chapter 19, verse 149, which says, Krishna Bhakta Nishkame Ataviya Shanta Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Shakaliya Shanta. The karmis who desire sense gratification, the jnanis who aspire for the liberation of merging into the existence of the Supreme, and the yogis who seek material success and mystic power are all restless, and ultimately they are baffled. But the devotee who does not expect any personal benefit, and whose only ambition is to spread the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is blessed with the all-auspicious results of Bhakti Yoga without hard labor. Therefore, the supreme occupation for all of humanity, very popular verse, Save pumsa paro dharma yotar bhakti radokshaja ahitaki aparahita ye atma suprasidati. The supreme occupation, dharma, for all of humanity is that by which men can attain to the loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. And in verse 29, Krishna says, Yad yujate suvasu karma mano vichobhir. The human society does many things for protecting one's life and wealth by one's mind, words, and actions. Dehatma jadeshu nirbhistad asad prataktvat. But because they are all done for one's personal or extended bodily gratification, without reference to the Lord's bhakti, they are baffled. Dereva sad bhavati yad kriyate prataktvat. Yet when the same activities are done for the Lord's satisfaction, the beneficial results are distributed to all. Sarvasya tad bhavati mula nishechanam yat. Just as water poured on the root of a tree is distributed throughout the entire tree. So in this purport, the Lord is described as the supreme judge who rewards or punishes different persons according to the surrender onto his lotus feet. So two types of activities are described, asat and sat. So asat activities are work not connected to Krishna. So karmis, those attached to material work, use God's property for their own sense gratification, and such activities is temporary and ultimately baffling, because material desires are endless and can never be fully satisfied, the results of which are confusing and therefore never bring true happiness. Spiritual activities, sat, on the other hand, are actions performed solely to please Krishna, without expectation of personal benefit. The results of such activities are eternal and fully beneficial, as they purify the heart and awaken love for the Lord. Even a little work done in Krishna consciousness is beneficial, because it is done for Krishna, who is Suryadam Sarva Bhutanam, the friend of all living beings, Bhoktaram Yajnatapasan, enjoyer of all sacrifices and austerities, and Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, the supreme proprietor. Devotees use the Lord's property to serve him and spread his glories. In this way, their actions transcend ordinary karma, producing eternal benefit rather than temporary results. So, sometimes it appears externally that the karmis and the bhaktas may appear to act similarly, but the results are completely dependent, and that determining factor is their motivation and consciousness. For example, I'll give you 3 examples. So, first example is cooking. So, karmi cooks a meal for personal enjoyment and for the family's pleasure. But a bhakti yogi cooks that same meal as a devotional offering, prasadam, to Krishna, with the consciousness that is for the Lord's enjoyment. In terms of professional work, both the bhakti yogi and karmi appears the same again. So the karmi works hard in a job to earn money, gain promotion, and achieve recognition. But the bhakti yogi performs the same duties skillfully and efficiently, but dedicates the results to God, seeing the work as a service opportunity rather than for personal gain. And the example of decision-making can be seen in the example of Arjuna. So Arjuna initially did not want to fight in the battle of Kurukshetra due to personal attachment to his kinsman, which would have led to karmic reactions. But after understanding the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna because it was his duty and Krishna's will, thereby acting without attachment and being free from karmic reactions. Therefore, every action we perform can produce either bondage or liberation, depending entirely on the consciousness of the actor. And I know it's 9, but even socially praised acts like altruism, nationalism, philanthropy cannot yield permanent results if performed without Krishna consciousness. So this is a common question that people may ask us. Aren't these good acts? What's wrong? So even with good intentions, these actions are driven by the desire for material benefits, such as good reputation, status, or simply the personal satisfaction of having helped others. So they remain material in nature, even if they help others temporarily. Such activities, while potentially pious, punya, still produce karmic reactions and keep the individual entangled in the cycle of birth and death within the material world. Therefore, these pious activities can bring material opulence, but no pure devotional service or liberation from material existence. So true philanthropy is acting in Krishna's interest. And what this means is this is helping all souls return to the eternal relationship with God, rather than merely providing temporary relief from material distress. And some practical examples in which we could do this is feeding people prasad, or donating to money to charities like Food for Life and Food for All, who does this. So this beyond satisfying a hunger, it connects people to Krishna, awakening their spiritual understanding. Another thing that we could do is teach the Bhagavad Gita, chanting practices, or distributing spiritual books. It's a book marathon at the moment, so you could take advantage of this. So this helps people develop devotion and understand the eternal relationship with God, not just material knowledge. The third thing we could do is donate resources to temples, Vedic schools, or devotional projects. Donating resources to temples, Vedic schools, or devotional projects, the focus is service to Krishna and his mission, not personal recognition or social status. And finally, we could help someone adopt Krishna consciousness or guide them towards devotional life, which is also not karmically bound. And then finally, Prabhupada talks about this concept in his purport called Phalena Parijyate, the idea that one success or defeat in any activity is understood by its result. So we see that the karmis transmigrate in the cycle of birth and death, and because they place faith in their own work rather than in the Lord, they receive only that which is allocated by their destiny and nothing more. On the other hand, the devotees achieve ultimate success, returning back to Godhead, where one is free from material bondage. So that ends my presentation. Does anyone have any comments, questions, corrections?
Okay, thank you very much, Shyamvallabha Mataji, for that wonderful chapter. That was really beautiful. Thank you. Has anyone got any questions? If so, you can raise your hands. I'll start off anyway. You talked just recently, just at the end, about the book marathon, and I was just trying to understand what the views were, because if we think about sustainability, we're promoting issuing books. So what would you say is the differences in promoting book distribution in the electronic form rather than the physical book?
So I think I'll share what I think. So I think the physical book has a lot more potency. I think even when when Prashashika Prabhu was saying that even when someone touches Prabhupada's book, even if they don't read it, they get they're benefited. And that one day they will become a devotee. So even that transaction of holding a physical book of Prabhupada's book is very powerful. I mean, again, with ebooks, it's the ebooks are very good. You and I read ebooks, but I guess nothing could really replace the actual book. Because like for example, the Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna himself, right? So you want Krishna in your house. You don't want an ebook, right? So the Bhagavad Gita again is.
Okay, thank you very much, Mataji. Vanita Mataji, you've got your hand up.
Yes, Hare Krishna. I'd just like to know about Chanakya.
Yeah.
Can you recommend me a book about him? Why is he thinking along these lines? I'd just like to know why is he thinking along these lines about women. I'd like to read about him. Anything you can recommend?
I'll be honest, I don't know books, but all I know about Chanakya Pandit is a devotee, and that's why Prabhupada refers to him. He's a scholarly devotee. So what he does say is bona fide because Prabhupada refers to him. However, I could research and try and get back to you personally after the class.
Yes, I'd love that. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Right. Thank you very much for that, Vanita Mataji. I'll ask you one further question and then we'll end the class because I don't see any other hands up, if that's okay. This is a little bit technical, so right. If you can help, that is. Both Mohinī-Mūrti Mataji and Radharani are forms of Krishna. So what I'd like to know is what are the differences of their forms in terms of their qualities, if you can sort of.
So Radharani is the internal energy of Krishna. So yeah, the internal energy of Krishna, and Radharani possesses so many qualities. Like for example, and this is something I like, because she's the best musician, she's the best cook, she never cooks anything once. It's described. She's shy, she's always youthful. She's the only one who could control Krishna, right? So the difference between Mohinī-Mūrti is an incarnation of Krishna. Radharani is his internal energy. So Radharani has the potential to control Krishna, which no one else has the potential to do. So here are the sum of the qualities of Radharani. But Mohinī-Mūrti is an incarnation of Krishna, and her purpose, and Krishna comes in different incarnations for different purposes. So he doesn't display, conjugal love, to Krishna like Radharani does. He doesn't have these sweet pastimes with Krishna. But like I mentioned, the purpose of Mohinī-Mūrti was to, let me find that slide. So the purpose of Mohinī-Mūrti was to cheat the asuras, and to like Buddha, so to sort of pretty much put the asuras back into place, or those who were envious of demigods or devotees. So Radharani has a sweeter pastime with Krishna, but Mohinī-Mūrti is Krishna himself. So they're two different.
Okay. Yep. Thank you very much, Mataji. Okay. If we can all kindly unmute and say our three Hari Bols. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Hari Bol!
Hari Bol.
Thank you so much.
Okay. If I can kindly, if I can kindly ask you to say the final prayers, I'll just quickly share them with you. And if you would like to recite those, please, Mataji. Hare Krishna. If we can all stay on mute whilst Mataji's doing that. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakota Vrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
jai.